Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing good, Kalen. How are you doing this morning?
Fiery this morning.
Are you fiery? Fired up or just fiery like you're on fire?
Annoyed.
Yeah.
It's not like I woke up annoyed. I didn't wake up annoyed, but I got annoyed through some meetings.
Well, there's only two reasons for people to get annoyed: the weather or people. What was it?
People.
And it's beautiful outside, so must be people.
Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful outside today, which is great.
Yeah, spring. To catch everyone up on timelines, it just passed the eclipse. Did you see it through the clouds?
No.
Oh, yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I mean, I was just
saw
waiting for the rapture. Apparently, there was Armageddon was coming and a rapture and all
I
this
know.
stuff.
I was hoping that my internet would stay on, and it did.
The reality of if any of this proves anything to anybody, is all that is just garbage. Like, I get that if you're like a fundamental Christian religious person and you believe in the rapture and that's coming and, second coming of God and all that stuff. Okay, that's fine to believe that, but to actually repeatedly pick these days that come and go with no rapture.
I know. Did Y2K teach us nothing?
Yeah. We go back thousands of years on these sort of like every generation, every several generations, there's always people that, this is it. This is the end times and all this. And it's pretty scary when a civilization like the United States has this really sort of extremism popping up more and more, where people are actually believing it, which, I think is insane to me.
Well, and it's polarizing because it's not that the world's going to end because of solar eclipse. I mean, that's nice science fiction, but we've had them before. We'll have them again, and maybe Jupiter's in retrograde or whatever, but that doesn't influence the shadow on the sun, I don't think. Obviously it doesn't.
But it's beyond. It's not anything to do with science. It's beyond that. It's about having, extremism views, extremist views on life, where you were just expecting the world to end at some point inexplicably because the Bible said it was, or you're interpreting it that it's saying it was. I mean, I think the governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee, declared a state of emergency.
Well, there were a couple states of emergencies, but I was under the impression, and I mean, this is where the media really plays with us, is I was under the impression that was just because they were expecting so much traffic in these small towns that they needed some way to preemptively move people, because these small towns in the path of totality or whatever are so small they can't have thousands of people just parked on the side of the highways. So I think that's why they were
planning for people to stare at the eclipse.
Well, people did. People camp out and they travel from around the world.
Did we just have an eclipse like
a couple years,
17 years ago or something, like 2017?
I got some great pictures of the shadows on the ground of that. Man,
that'd be kind of cool.
It is super cool. And I don't know. I think because there are so many people who firmly believe that something was going to happen, I don't want to take that away from them, but obviously nothing really did happen. But
nothing ever happens because nothing is going to happen.
I was out there though, and I could really feel like there was an energy that was either in my own head or was being created by the lack of sunlight at that moment. And, maybe it was nothing.
There's all that. Like even you look at the idea of grounding and, connection to earth and moon and, it affects our polar caps and, the curvature of the earth and, the rotation of the earth and all that stuff is all, and that's all science, which is explained by science. But I feel as a human, we're very connected or should be very connected to to the earth.
Yeah, and when we're not, and people talk about that, it gets exploited, and they're like, "Oh, look at these druids saying the world's going to end." It's maybe they're just talking about the energies or the feeling you get from,
I guess,
natural processes of the
yeah,
world.
I don't know. I mean, I was in the ocean this morning because
Nice.
I've been dipping in the mornings.
Are you doing that regularly now?
Yeah, I've been doing it now. I think, I don't know, 50 days or 45 days. I've been doing it for almost a couple months.
Wow.
And there is something to connecting to the earth, and I don't know, like I feel a lot of peace when I walk out onto the beach and into the ocean. I'm in the ocean.
You go naked?
No, I don't go naked. I wear.
I don't know.
Nobody wants to see that, man. I don't even want to see it.
Depends what time you're up in the morning. No one's around.
Well, it's surprising how many people are around.
Oh, really?
There's a lot. I saw Rob Reed from Front Runners running.
Huh.
And I shouted at him, and
he's like, "Put some clothes on, please."
Yeah,
Calen.
I know. He's like, "What are you doing?" I expected people. I expect to see Rob Reed running in the morning at 7.
Absolutely.
But people don't expect to see me walking out of the ocean at 7.
Fair enough. But how's that treating you? Is it pretty good?
It's good. Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, as you age, I'm 53. I've got arthritis in my knees. I've got back problems. I was recently diagnosed with spinal stenosis, which is a narrowing of your spinal chamber, where all your nerves are. Like sciatica is a symptom of that issue.
Okay.
So I thought I had a hip problem, but it was actually a back problem that, presents as if your hip's sore. But anyway, that's helped immensely. So I think initially I was like a little unsure about what it would do. For me, it's more about the discipline of doing it.
Right.
And also starting your day off with a bit of a challenge, because, when you're standing before the water, you're like, okay, you're going to be in a bit of discomfort. And I think putting yourself in a bit of discomfort gets you ready for the day, So I view the whole process as more about discipline, because then when I'm doing that, if I'm getting up at 7 in the morning or getting up at 6 in the morning to dip at 7, and go through that process, well, I'm going to make sure that I fast as well. So I make sure my fasting is tight.
Yeah.
I've been exercising more since I've started to do it.
Did you do the 8 p.m. to like 2 p.m. fast, or is it a little
No,
shorter
I
than
do. Yeah, a little shorter. I usually will eat anywhere between 12 or 1 or 2, and then I'll stop eating 6, 7, or 8, depending on what it is. But typically would be a 16-hour fast would be eating from 12 to 8, right? So depending on how I'm feeling or what I'm doing or what activities I have, like I haven't eaten today, and I probably won't eat until probably 1 or something, and then I'll stop eating at 8 usually. And then I try to exercise. So usually when I dip, because you're obviously cold, part of the science of it, I guess, is that you let your body heat up. So,
which is like exercise, right?
It's internally that's doing stuff. So I've lost about 8 or 9 pounds since I've started this.
Just by dipping.
Well,
and fasting maybe as well.
Yeah, a little bit more disciplined, I guess, with my fasting and my dieting. I've greatly reduced my alcohol intake over the last couple of years. So even more so now, I try not to drink alcohol, which I think obviously helps too. But I think the dipping and just having your body shivering for hours after, like sometimes, like if you go in there, sometimes we lose track of time because I go with a friend or a couple friends, and we may be in there at 9 minutes, and then I'm literally shaking, shivering all day. It doesn't really matter what happens. And I don't, often it depends on what I'm doing. I won't go and take a hot shower after. I'll just let my body naturally, reach that equilibrium again. But I've noticed weight loss for sure. My body feels a lot better, like inflammation. And I like the discipline of it. So it's kind of...
Yeah, I really like the discipline as well. And that you're going to see just translate into so many other parts of your life, I'm sure.
Oh.
Once you have one thing, especially if it's a first thing in the morning discipline, that really sets a tone for the rest of your day, your week even. Yeah. It's amazing what a good morning routine will do.
Well, and I think that's part about it. It is like, especially, as business owners, we often can get lost in the duties of the job. And we think obviously because it requires work and it's our passion, but you can lose sight of what you need as an individual and self-care and creating habits for yourself that are positive, that are unrelated to business. Obviously, by doing that, the business will benefit because you'll be more focused. You'll be also taking care of yourself. But people often forget to take care of self-care.
And it's so important too. I mean, I was really good at that for years. I was really good at self-care all the way up until the pandemic. Basically, I was a master of discipline. What I ate, what went in, how I exercised. I was really proud of myself, and I felt great. Never being stronger or healthier. Yeah. And then it was like pandemic, and everything went to airport rules. Right? It's like, I'll start drinking anytime I want. Exactly. It doesn't. The clocks don't matter anymore. Yeah. And but I would go and I would jump in the ocean once a month, which was my thing. I would only do it once a month, so I could say every month of the year I'd been in the ocean. That was just one thing I did, but that wasn't a routine thing. But I haven't done it in a long time. Yeah. And just talking to you about jumping in the ocean makes me want to, like, I live close enough to the ocean, as we all do in Victoria. We're on the tip of an island. Can't go any direction without hitting the ocean. So
no, and I think for me, it's free. It connects you with nature, regardless of, all the perceived benefits or implied benefits or scientific benefits of it. Because some of it is provable, the benefits, and they're talking about the benefits. Obviously, I think a lot of people think it's a fad because you see Joe Rogan doing it and all these guys out there.
Wim Hoffman or Hoffwinman.
Yeah. Well, and, so I guess it's easy to think of it as a fad, but I don't know how, like, getting your body to do things, putting it in an uncomfortable spot, but allowing your own body to burn calories just because it's got to heat yourself up. Like, I like it. Like, I think it's also good for depression, even though I'm annoyed today. It's, I've over the years have suffered, bouts of depression and, that kind of stuff. So I think the fasting has also fixed that as well. I know I used to have more episodes of being depressed, and it wouldn't be like deep, dark depression, but, probably once every quarter or something, I would just get down for a week and just feel down. So when I, back in 2017, I was diagnosed with diabetes, and then I just immediately went into a health regimen that also ended up me doing a keto diet for a number of years. And I ended up losing, I think 70 pounds through that process, and since gained back 20 or 30. But the discipline of the fasting and then also just a more paleo type diet, I think, has helped with my depression, helps with my energy, help control my weight, which is good. And then to me, this is just an extension of that discipline. So obviously it's not easy. I've been fasting since 2017. So
that's you should probably have something to eat by now.
Well, yeah.
Wow, that's a long fast, man.
Intermittent fasting.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't. Yeah, I should.
I haven't eaten anything since 2017.
I just drink water.
Oh, and 2% jazz coffee.
And 2% jazz coffee.
It's life-sustaining since 2017.
2017.
You know who the original cold plunger was, I think? Is James Bond.
Oh, James Bond. I was going to say Jacques Cousteau.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Actually, maybe. The other James. He would have a hot shower. And I don't know how I know this, so I'm just reaching for facts from the air.
The character.
The character James Bond. The fictional character James Bond. Supposedly.
Fictionally.
But this is how I copied his theory is I would turn my shower up hot and gradually make it hotter and hotter until I couldn't stand it. I was almost done my shower, and then turn it to cold, turn off all hot water and just have the extreme. Yeah. And supposedly that is what James Bond did. And it's good for your lymphatic system, actually.
Oh, interesting.
It just triggers
would be the Nordic, the sauna, and the cold plunge.
And everyone's got that option in their own shower. And it's actually really fun to do that.
I know, but the thing about the shower, because I recently went to Vegas for a week, and because I've been so disciplined with my dipping, I checked to see where there's, cold plunges or whatever. And there was one nearby. I didn't go. And it's also expensive. Like, that's the beauty of being able to do it in the ocean is you're not spending $30 or $40 to just go and dip, that's what it costs to do at a spa. But that whole, Ritual is a spot here that is on Johnson Street.
Okay.
And they've got a dipping pool that is, I think, 3 degrees. So it's a couple degrees, 3 or 4 degrees colder than the ocean. And then they've got a sauna and a steam room, and then a salt room. And then they also have an outdoor area where you can sit. And I went there, and it was really, really good. But I guess that, when you talk about the heat and then the cold, Nordic culture, Finnish, like it's been a part of their, lifestyle and their culture for a long time. And, so
they're still around.
They're still around. It must be good. But I do think there's
millions of Nords, can't be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. They're Vikings, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. It's interesting, but I think the theme of it is about self-care and just doing stuff for yourself as a priority to start your day. And yeah, I don't think that can be bad.
I've got a buddy up island who works on a farm. Well, he owns a farm, and I went up and spent some time up there, and I was really fascinated because he would just go to bed early. He was just like, we were all sitting around the table, and you just like night, like 7:30, quarter to 8. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And his wife is explaining, well, he wakes up at like 3 a.m. and just has the morning to himself. And it's a wonderful thing. I'm like, that is amazing. So I'm like, I can do that. I'm like, I need a new routine. This was post-COVID. I need a new morning routine. So I'll start waking up at 4. And I'll just have the morning to myself. I'll make myself a coffee. I'll meditate. I'll draw or stretch or whatever it is I want to do. Stare at the sky getting brighter. I don't care. And as soon as I did that, I just woke up, dressed, brushed my teeth, and went to work.
Yeah.
And I just had like 2 more hours of work to do the day. It's like, oh man.
But did you feel that you got stuff accomplished?
So much.
Plus there's no noise at that time.
Yeah,
like, no one calling you.
I still wake up at 4.
Yeah.
Still. And I know I'm not doing it right.
Yeah.
Because it was meant to be time for myself.
Yeah.
But now I'm finding it's just a really good time to get shit done before anyone else is even
Do you find
awake.
that you're finishing earlier in the day as a result of
that?
No, really. Because
I just pack more in. I just feel
pack
more
more in. Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because I started going to bed early as well. So I'm usually looking to go to bed around 8.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Me too. 8:30.
Yeah, at 9:30, I'm like, okay, I got to be in bed. And it's not that I'm designating a start time, but I usually find myself waking up around 5 or 6. And I usually will either stream something while I'm going to sleep or read before going to sleep. But I maybe have a half hour where I'm actually awake before I actually fall asleep. So maybe I'm asleep on average by 9:30, 10 o'clock every day, which I think is good because, on days I get to sleep, I don't really sleep in, but say I wake up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock or something, then I've had a good solid 8 hours of rest, even if, say, my brain's active, because it's hard when you've got projects on, to find sleep.
Yeah.
But I think the rest period is good. So even though I may not have like that deep, dark REM sleep, I've been resting, eyes shut from 10 till 6 or 10 till 5. So I'm getting a good 7-8 hours every day, which I think is good.
And for people who are like very busy and have lots of projects on the go, and if you can't get enough sleep, doing things like plunging or anything that's for you is a great time to not be doing work, not be thinking about work, but it makes you really come back to your work with a way more focused approach.
Yeah, it should. And I think it also, by prioritizing that, even at whatever period, so maybe there's an hour in the morning where I'll wake up, I'll start getting ready to go to the plunge at 6:30, 6:45. I'm there like at 7. I plunge, I'm done 7:15. I'm on my way home by 7:30. And then I'll do some stretching and some core work, and I'll maybe run on or walk on the treadmill for a half hour, 20 minutes.
Wow.
And then so I've got a little bit of a routine that is just me. And sure, I'm thinking about work and thinking about different things, but I'm prioritizing that time for myself.
How can you think about work when you're freezing in the ocean?
Well, yeah, I
That
mean,
must
you're
be
just
like
thinking
at
about
least 5
anything
minutes
but
of
what's
just
happening.
like,
Yeah, it's like literally your brain is going. And some days are worse than others, obviously. You know, it's stormy and it's cold and you're like, oh, man. But when
It must
you
be
walk
colder
out of
getting
it.
out. Is it colder getting out? Because you'd think the ocean's always around the same temperature, right?
Yeah,
But
it
it's the
varies
air.
a couple degrees, but the air changes outside. So
Yeah.
I think it's coming out is actually better than going in. Going in, it's just that initial shock to your system. But then once you're in, you're like, okay. And then as you're walking out, you start feeling this sort of high from having put your body through that, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming out is good. Then you towel off. I've got a friend of mine has an outdoor adventure company, and I was in the market for like a jacket, like a plunging jacket, so that you could actually, take your wet shorts off and put your dry shorts on without exposing the world to my
Here I
naked
thought I was
body.
right the whole time.
Yeah,
You
no,
walking
no.
around the beach naked
No.
at 7 a.m. At what beach? Arbutus Cove?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say the location. It is the Oak Bay Marina.
Oh,
It's
oh,
pretty
man.
convenient. But yeah,
That
so
is.
he showed up and he's like, "Oh, I've got these jackets that because he has a surfing training business."
Huh.
And he's like, "Yeah, I've got this perfect. I could sell to you." So I supported him, but now I have this amazing, like, warm, waterproof jacket that I'm able to kind of gear down and gear up in.
Oh,
And
that must make it much easier.
yeah, well, even yesterday, so I missed in the morning because the chamber has these CEO breakfasts, which is really interesting because, like the Chamber of Commerce, if people don't know, is an organization to support business in cities, and they're across the country. Victoria has one of the oldest chambers in the country. It's also one of the best managed. It's the best funded. They started, Big Wheel Burger is a chamber champion. So, at the start of COVID, Bruce Williams, who used to be like a TV personality and radio personality, news personality for Czech and CTV over the years, became the president of, and he's got a podcast on Czech as well. And it's a chamber podcast. But he came on and then he introduced this chamber champion program where, each one, it's basically like sponsoring the chamber. So it creates some cash flow consistency, helps fund the programming. But they're excellent advocates to the government for business. They're, this particular chamber under Bruce's leadership is really involved in helping the community deal with some of the issues, like with the opioid crisis, the housing crisis. And so they're advocating, they're bringing on, like, the end of this month, the Premier BC, David Eby, is coming on, and we'll be questioning him about some of the decisions they've made, or lack of decisions when it comes to funding mental health and drug addiction, and creating programming in BC to help solve those issues, because we're just literally spinning the wheel. And even the Justice Department, which is the federal, so we'll have these engagement opportunities, which I don't know how effective they've been in the past, but from my experience, it's very effective. So they also put on the CEO breakfast. So these business leaders from the community come together, and I think there's like 30 or 35, and you have a round table. It's a 2-hour sort of breakfast, but talk about the state of your business, state of the, and it's a really good, forum. And, Del Manick, the police chief's there, the head of the Navy's there, head of BC Transit, BC Ferries, like a bunch of banks, bunch of private enterprises, construction, all these different industries are coming together. And it's just a really good forum to talk about issues on Southern Vancouver Island and how it directly relates to us and areas that we can help each other, with our staffing or, any of those types of issues that come up in business. So it's been good. I've really
Are all
enjoyed
the
that.
chambers of commerce all in line with themselves, like for policy, or does it change?
I
from
think
region
so.
to region?
But every region, it all depends on who's leading the ship.
Okay.
So, and this is why the Victoria Chamber, and I think it won an award last year for the best chamber in the country.
Right.
And Bruce Williams is the reason, and also the people that work there as well. But he's fostered this different approach to the chamber. And I was never a part of the chamber before. I was in and out, but I just didn't see value in, meeting with a bunch of realtors and a bunch of, people that are justifiably trying to support their business and network.
Right.
But this new programming that they have in the city of Victoria, or the Victoria Chamber of Commerce, is very socially minded, but also collaborative with businesses, so that we can all get together and discuss different issues in, across industries, but are unique to us, like housing, like we talked yesterday about the housing and staff housing. And
do you know what the North Saanich Chamber of Commerce is doing right now when it comes to housing? There's a big program that they're pushing for housing. I'm not the one to explain it, but if you want, go to the Chamber of Commerce of the North Saanich.
Yeah, so there's different,
and Al Smith is in charge of that one. He's like a bulldog with this.
Yeah.
He wants more housing built out there, and he knows that they can do it.
Yeah.
They're just not doing it.
Well, you've got to remove and we talked about this yesterday, and I've been involved, like, also there's a representative from municipality of Saanich who I've been in meetings with as well. And they have very good intention. But it's recognize the gatekeeping that happens through the process, and just eliminating like nonsense and getting down to the practicalities of, if we are in a housing crisis, if we are in an opioid crisis, if we are in a healthcare crisis, like, eliminate the bullshit and just get to the brass tacks on how we're going to do it, at least for a temporary period.
Right.
So that you can speed things up.
I don't know why I've never put you in touch with Al Smith before. You guys should meet.
Yeah, I think I met Al before. But yeah, I'm always open to networking. And
well, his crusade on housing is really important, I think, and I think it's something that you also believe in really strongly. So,
well, we recently purchased a house for staff housing.
Did you really?
Yeah. So, and like,
whereabouts?
It's on Gladstone, near Vic High.
Oh,
so nice. It's a really good neighborhood. It's a house that my friend of mine owned. It wouldn't have been able to happen if I didn't have that relationship. Because I wouldn't be able to qualify for another mortgage on a property. It's a bit of an older property. So he did a lot for me to help get us into the property. I had a couple managers that were coming in that needed a place, but also needed to be subsidized because of, just their situation and coming from a market. They're coming from Saskatchewan to a Victoria market.
It's a big jump.
It's a big jump. And so it's about support. And
so you bought them a house?
Well, it's basically. Yes. And there was another couple workers that needed a house or a place to live. And one is price, another is just pure availability. And so this particular property is right in the middle of town, which is like a perfect location to get where they need to get. It's on a bus route. It's close to schools. It's like, not all housing is the same. Like, so you have cheaper housing in Langford, which is changing. But but if you work in Cook Street Village, like, how effective is it? And even when it comes to like climate change and climate action, is like, you're building homes so far away from where people need to be.
And that's part of what Al's battling, is the location of homes compared to the location of businesses. Like, you look at Amazon moving out there.
Exactly.
Like, where are all those employees living? They're not living out there.
No.
So they're all coming in from Victoria.
Well, and the thing about it is then you get into the ALR components and, where things are designated agricultural, zoning requirements to build. There's a lot of land out there, but there isn't a lot of places to build.
Right.
So there's floodplain issues. There's NIMBYism.
What's NIMBYism?
Not in my backyard.
Oh.
Right. So, if you're going to look at development, you need to build housing around transportation. Yeah. You need it in core areas where, there's places to shop, places to work, all that stuff. And you talk about this 15-minute city. idea, if you've ever heard of that. And
Yeah.
it's literally, and you had a bunch of railing from right-leaning people about, oh, it's communism and blah, blah, blah. It's practicality and it's how people live. And if you want to create a robust, environment to cater for, having businesses, but also having workers work in those businesses, and you need to build this infrastructure close to transportation, close to housing, close to where they need to work. So you literally, like, how nice is it in Cook Street Village if you're able to live down there, to just walk to the village and do your banking and do your shopping and eat and walk to the beach. And like, that to me is living. Like, sitting in a car for 90 minutes commuting in Toronto or in Vancouver is not living.
Or from a chosen to Keating.
Yeah. And I think part of the thing too, in this post-COVID world, people are looking and work from home. So, there's businesses that are struggling in downtown Victoria because everybody's working remotely. But, in those remote communities, people are actually staying and shopping in their neighborhoods, and they're maybe going for lunch closer to where they live. So it's a transfer, so it's not necessarily an ending of people eating lunch and doing that stuff, which they were doing it downtown because that's where the office concentration was. So I think there's a number of dynamics that are going to be around with us for a long time. And there's businesses, we talked about yesterday, where some businesses were forcing workers back to the office, but getting a lot of resistance. So you've got an employee that's worked with you for a number of years that now can shift to a different business that will allow them to work from home because that's their preference per se. And some people obviously like, the community that's built of working in an office and that. And they identified issues with, identifying talent and, culture building that's void of that when people work from home. So there is practicality, business loss. Like, short term, you get a happier employer. Long term, the culture of the business shifts. Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's hard to maintain culture when you're not all
well, that's
together,
the point.
Right? Yeah.
And then how do you reward behavior and how do you mentor? So how are older employees that are getting ready to exit and retire able to share what they've known all these years with the other employees when they're disconnected?
Yeah, and you just can't do all of that on Dropbox.
No, and I think that's sort of like
stuff.
the long-term risk of this shift. So I think there's different ways to do it. You can build in, culture days where all employees are back on a Thursday, Friday or whatever. So they're trying to figure out the balance. So I'm sure that, in the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be studies on the consequences of this shift that's happened. But I don't see it being undone.
Culture Day. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's like
even
Jeans Day on Fridays used to be Jean Day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now I have Culture Day on Friday.
Yeah,
Like,
where you can actually come to work and you can sit and you can chat about what's going on, and maybe that's the day where you have collaborative meetings and discussions with your teams. And I know from our organization, our senior leadership team is spread out all over. I mean, we have my effective GM, we call him managing director, but he lives in France. With his wife, who also works with us, and she does our books. And my mom, who also does our books, splits her time between Canada and Mexico because she's retiring. And then our team that runs the stores, the senior, we have store managers, of course, but the senior team, we all meet remotely. And we'll meet in person probably once a month. And it's an effective way to run our business, which is good, but there is definitely cultural, cost. And it's hard to know where people's heads are at when you're remote. So, as far as whether what their career aspirations are, or you don't get that, opportunity to pat them on the back or to give them a high five or those things. So trying to build that in to the way you do it, because you can go months. Like, I walked in a store yesterday and, the remote thing keeps me from being in the stores too, because I'm not there to meet managers. I'm not there to meet the senior team or review stuff. So, I saw an employee that I hadn't met before, and I'm saying, welcome to the team, and how long have you been here? And she's been there like 4 months. And I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing. Yeah, maybe I've been in the store, but
I'm doing the same thing right now.
Yeah. So how's everything in your business? Like, what's been going on? You're simulated in your new production facility, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's pretty good actually. I mean, we're coming out of the doldrums of winter. It feels like it's spring. I see, because a big part of my business is wholesale, I got a pretty good grasp on what other people's businesses are doing. So I can see them, and you can see different parts of town because you see where their locations are. You see different parts of town kind of growing right now and building back up.
Yeah.
I feel that the museum is going to have a good year this year.
Oh, is it started? I'm actually going there today to go see a couple IMAX.
Oh, I don't know if we should change the name from the BC Museum just to the IMAX now. Because it feels like that's what people are going to.
Yeah, it's a big draw. Yeah.
It is. It's unfortunate. I mean, it's cool that there is an IMAX because
But it's
IMAX
part of cultural. I mean,
really
most of those IMAX films are, documentary style and informative. I went to the Scene Reap or the what was it called? It was about the history of Angkor Wat.
Oh yeah,
and it was called Angkor. The hidden
in Cambodia, right?
In Cambodia, and it talked about, because I'd been there, but I never knew why it went missing, because it basically went missing for hundreds of years.
Didn't the jungle just overtake it?
The jungle overtook it, but how it failed, because this was like a robust. I mean, they had 100, 200, 300,000 people living in Angkor Wat. And it was a religious temple for 1,000 years before it went missing, or 500 years before it went missing, and the jungle took it over. But prior to that, the reason why they had to leave is because there was a drought, which I thought was very fascinating, because, at the time, who were they blaming for their drought back then? They were blaming the gods, right?
Yeah.
But they weren't necessarily blaming the oil companies. So I just thought it was
the new modern gods, you mean?
Yeah, the new modern gods. Yeah, which is kind of interesting, because obviously, with our free speech and all this stuff. I mean, I'm 100% believer in climate change, and our whole business is carbon neutral, and I'm 100% supporter of that. But it's just interesting when you see this film, and I've been to Angkor Wat a couple times. I'm actually going again next year, and seeing that history, and like people literally had to leave because they couldn't grow crops and they couldn't feed themselves because of the drought.
It happens.
It happens, right? And it's cyclical, and it's, the earth is always changing and all those things, which are also true.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's important not to over allocate, but also over, dramatize.
You can have two truths working in conjunction.
Well,
with
and the
each
thing
other,
about it
right?
is like the other thing that it gets lost in this whole mix is the fact that I'm sure people were affected, but they moved. Like humans we've got feet, we've got brains, now we have vehicles, and obviously, most people don't have the financial pressure of moving in our society where we live. That's not the same in other countries where you physically, can't move because you don't have an income, you don't have a job, you don't, all that stuff. So there are barriers in other countries, but back in Angkor Wat in that period, people just moved to areas where there was food and there was water, and life went on. And then now Angkor Wat they're slowly rebuilding it in the historic sense, and it's a big tourist attraction, but now it's coming back to life again. So I don't know. I think it's more of an uplifting message that, it's the same idea that, majority of people that die from weather die from cold.
Yeah,
so they've not from warm. Yeah. So as the world warms, there's less cold deaths. There's a few more heat deaths, but it's so disparate. It's like a 10x less in heat than cold. Yeah. So how are we accounting for those lives saved in this process as well?
We actually probably can't account for any of it. Realistically, I mean, it's so
not
hard.
in the moment of time either.
Yeah,
it's just like we're looking at it as it's right now. Like I think obviously everything is reviewed in a lens of historic. So 100 years from now, maybe less, we'll look back and go, oh, we were nuts. Or we are like, oh, well, we didn't do it. We failed. Or we're like, hey, it wasn't that big a deal. It's like, obviously Y2K wasn't a science thing. It wasn't Yeah, it was
a technology
thing, but not necessarily a
thing.
science thing.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't based on fact. It was based on idea that something was going to happen because it wasn't hardwired into the software.
And no one knew really.
And no one knew what would happen when the date happened. But the date, they spent billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars just for a nothing burger.
Yeah.
It just rolled over and everything just continued. But
much like the eclipse and maybe
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, humans react to information, and then we find out later whether that was a thing we needed to react to, or that the expense of it was justified, or all that stuff. And typically, I think most of the stuff throughout history, you look back and go, oh, well, they had this huge reaction, and it was a bit of a nothing burger. So
I had a big reaction to climate change. I went and got myself compostable bags for my coffee, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I did. Yeah. I spent way too much money on these compostable bags just so I could show people that I was using compostable bags, and I had them all printed, not on one bag that I put, these are compostable bags, not on one of them. And I had tens of thousands of these bags made, and not one of them said compostable on it. And my old bags,
missed opportunity.
So I'm not missing out this opportunity yet. When it came to reorder them, I just didn't reorder them. I'm like $1.26 for a bag that doesn't say anything about compostability. It is compostable, except for the valve, right?
So this isn't custom bags. This is just generic bags that you bought.
Well, no, these were custom bags that I bought.
That you just never put that logo on?
No, I never said they were compostable.
Was that by
accident?
By accident.
By accident. Because I knew they were compostable.
Yeah.
It was in my mind. It was right there in my mind.
But you didn't communicate.
But no one else knew that.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, I'm now going back, and they were only 12-ounce bags.
Yeah.
So I'm going back to full pound bags.
Yeah.
And the craft paper bags with the cornstarch plastic lining. And of course, the whole thing's compostable.
Yeah.
And they're like,
so you put on there this bag is compostable?
Under 10 cents. I'll get myself a little stamp, maybe. Yeah. I'll say compostable.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all it needs, right?
Yeah.
But I know I'm not going to save the world by my compostable.
Listen, incremental change is important. Bags. And I guess, everybody's looking to do these things. And, we've talked about this before, and I've railed about it again, is like even the EV thing. Like electric vehicles are so front end loaded with carbon, and environmental impact that people rushing out to buy electric vehicles where they've got a perfectly good combustion engine vehicle, I think is a mistake. Like I think using things to end of life.
Well, if they have a perfectly good combustible car, they probably shouldn't be buying any other car anyway.
No, just running it into the ground.
So what if a person needed a new car and had an equal choice of combustible or a new EV? I mean,
I think in that situation, probably a new EV would be the wise choice. But selling, like the humans get bored, right?
They do.
And they're like, oh, I want a new car. This car is not classy enough. None of those decisions are positive for the environment. Like in anything, in consumerism in general. So buying new clothes is actually probably one of the worst things you can do for the environment versus, upcycling and buying used clothes.
That's why I make all my clothes out of coffee sacks now.
Yes.
You'd never be able to tell. I've done a wonderful job of this one.
Yeah, you
it's softer now, right?
Yeah,
I just pound the hell out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, everybody's making decisions, but then they'll wake up and go, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be doing this. Then they'll react to something else and think that they're doing something for the environment. Like buying an electric vehicle, for example, is a prime example.
Yeah.
The electric vehicles do not surpass a combustion engine until year 5 of ownership.
And most leases or terms of people's ownership of cars are about 5 years.
Well, the average person owns their car between 4 and 5 years.
Yeah.
So they're basically, so you're going to just buy a new electric vehicle every 5 years.
Which just perpetuates.
Yeah, which is front end loading everything. And it's same thing when, Trudeau took 2 planes on his election, and he was like, people are calling him out for the impact on the environment. And he's like, oh, well, we offset the carbon. It's like, but you're putting the carbon in the air in the first place. Like you should be looking to reduce that before then offset what's already reduced. And those are kind of like good decisions.
You might
right?
be a good person to have this conversation with, and we might not have enough time to have this conversation on this.
You got
one,
a
but
dentist.
I got a dentist appointment, and that's not what I want to talk about. Thank God. So the carbon tax plays into you being carbon neutral, right? I mean, because or does it?
No.
It's not the same thing, but it feels similar because being carbon neutral, you can hopefully the first thing you do is reduce the amount you put out. Right? Like that's what it's all about, reducing the amount. But I know that there are a lot of companies and corporations out there who that's not their first thing they do. They want to be carbon neutral, not for the same reasons that other people do, like yourself, maybe, which is a good reason. But they've got this out, like a big corporation that pollutes a lot has this really easy out. They just pay to get carbon neutral.
Yeah.
Right? You just pay for whatever you're putting out there.
Well, the problem with it is
balances it.
This is the problem I have with taxation is you could change behaviors in a short term with taxation, perhaps, but most people, especially in a society that is wealthy, like I don't get a tax rebate. Like I've never seen a tax rebate from the climate, like the carbon tax.
Yeah, I don't even know what they're talking about.
I don't know what they're talking about. So I guess
I've never
we
seen
don't
one.
qualify or something to get the rebate or whatever, but I know all of our expenses have increased. So we're paying it out. I'm unfortunately, like, I don't even think about it because it's not going to change my behavior in any way, shape, or form. I'm just going to pay it.
It can't, right? And that's
It's impossible.
So
why are you?
how useful is that? Then?
Well, if you're going to tax something, then use those funds to create something.
Are they?
They're not. No, they say it's neutral, so they just give it back to people.
But they don't. Like,
well, I don't know. Like,
it doesn't
forget
feel like
even that argument because take it at face value, but assume they're telling the truth that it goes back to whoever, to somebody.
So what's the point then? If I pay out $1,000 more and I get $1,000 back, why
so you've
do it?
added to all the costs of living. You maybe have changed some behaviors. I don't know. Like I hadn't changed my behavior in any way, shape, or form.
You can't because we just absorb those costs. And over time we forget what it was like before and we just move on to higher costs.
And then those funds go into general revenue. When you could actually take those funds, don't give them back to anybody, but use it for innovation, use it to actually do climate change policy and mitigation. That's the biggest thing in this whole art discussion is mitigation. Because, just like when the Abbotsford flooded, it was a dike failure. The U.S. had repaired the dike on the other side. They didn't have the same outcome. But yet we are calling it a catastrophic event due to climate change. It's climate change related, but it's actually a deferral of maintenance. Yeah. So we have to get our reality straight here. Like we are going to have climate related disasters, but they're going to the disaster can be mitigated with prep, just like forest fires. Yeah. Like, the forest management over the last 25 years has been abysmal. And there's a study that said the federal government need to invest, I don't know, like $50 billion in order to fix it 25 years ago. They didn't. So now
and how do you fix it? Just by making clear
forest management. So it's kind of what the indigenous communities have been doing for a long time. They actually take care of their forests.
They selectively log.
It's selective logging, but you also clear brush. So what ends up happening is these trees die, right? So, and, pine beetles, which is another, effect that kind of devastated the forest in our area. So all of that dead wood is there. It needs to be cleaned out. So you have certain communities that are doing better jobs of it. And guess what? They're having better impacts with forest fires because the kindling is in there. Yeah. So to say that forest fires are related, that's true. They're related where it's hot. It's been a drought in the West Coast for a long time, 20 years. So all these things are causing the environment for it, but we've not mitigated it. But yet then we're screaming, we're spending money at the end. You either spend money at the beginning or you spend money at the end. Yeah. So let's spend some money at the beginning, but let's raise that money.
But we're far from the beginning now. So now...
Well, we're looking at it through history. And basically on every single issue that we're facing right now is a lack of investment. Right. The idea that the urban sprawl that everybody was doing and just building communities out, all that kind of stuff, created the lack of 15-minute cities and transportation crisis, housing crisis, downloading mental health to families, and removing, the Privacy Act also did it too, where we can't find out information about people unless we're that individual person. And so how is that helping this person that's in a mental health crisis? Because you can't help them. Or when they closed down the institutions where people were, obviously things that needed to improve or whatever, but budget cuts, and they're just like, oh, let's kick all these people on the streets.
Well, they needed to be improved, not dismantled.
No, exactly.
Like dismantling.
So just budget cuts and this and that, and then now they're like, oh my God, well, we don't know how we got here or how to get us out of here. It's like, guys, just go back to the basics of funding the programs. And now, because of the state of where everything is, it's going to take a number of years to get it better. But don't just pass the buck. Like, get down. It's even like the justice reform, where people are just getting kicked out. Like, so you have people that are doing these crimes. They've got 100 charges, and they're just out on the street because there is no, they get out on bail, or there is no bail, or there's no place to put them. It's like, okay, well, fix it. Like, fix it. Like, fund it, fix it. Like,
yeah, we've created a beast.
Yeah, and even now, like, when you look at the mitigation, like, just create a budget, hire a bunch of people, find those people, and that's the other issue. There isn't enough people to work, So it's now we're in a real quagmire because it's all converged. Healthcare is crumbling, mental health is an issue, housing is an issue, employment's an issue, all the environment's an issue, climate's an issue, all that stuff, and it's all stuff that could have been, and the politicians talked about it, But here we are.
Yeah, here we are with feeling like we're the solution as well. Like small business being the solution, or the individuals even in our country being the solution to the problem. And this is where the conversation about the carbon tax comes in, I think, is because, I don't think that people and small businesses are really to blame for what's going on. We certainly aren't being able to fix it. I mean, everything we do to mitigate what we put out is great. Lower your own footprint, that's great. I think most of us are doing that just fine. I think.
Well, there's progression for sure.
But I think that if we want to solve the problems, I think we're.
Well, some
I
of
think
it's
we're
been
going
solved.
about it the wrong way.
Well, but some of it's already been solved. Like the climate, we already have nuclear. So
yeah,
we actually have the
solutions.
Technology that could solve it.
In fact, Canada is one of the best in that industry.
Yeah. So there is the issue. There is things that we've done that we could lean into, but I think we just need to break it all down and kind of rebuild it in a common sense way.
I don't want to sound like the guy who's complaining about plastics or no more plastic straws, but I am that guy.
Well, what ends up happening is when you focus on the plastic straws, you think you're doing something when you're not. Like,
you're not.
I mean, there's 100 things like plastic straws that in combination would make a big difference. But what it does is things, check, I did that today, and that's it. So now you don't even think about anything else. And so that's the danger when the city does their stuff, because they don't have a lot of levers. So they're banning bags and they're doing plastic straws and doing this stuff, which is great. But when I'm involved in these things, I'm like, guys, why aren't we encouraging people to be carbon neutrality? So maybe getting some tax breaks for carbon neutral businesses and things like that, offsetting some of the costs to become carbon neutral, because that to me is low hanging fruit. That'll actually make a difference.
And that's benefiting people. That's encouraging people to do something. It's the carrot. It's not the stick. Whereas the tax is a stick.
Tax is
a
stick.
You can use all the carbon you want. And you'll just get used to the
Well,
beating.
and the reality of it is, like, the government has proven to not manage taxes well.
Oh yeah.
Like I think everybody can agree that that's true.
It's just mismanaged
And
all
institutionalized, like institutions themselves become the behemoth. Like, you look at any inefficiencies, the bigger you get, and government is a big entity that is inefficient, and nobody has skin in the game. So the beauty of the free market is that people have skin in the game, are actually managing
The lobbyists
the
have
business.
skin in the game.
The lobbyists have skin in the game.
Yeah.
The skin is their reward for lobbying government in a certain way.
And it should,
the
it should be
government
us
is
that
not
has,
coming.
it
Yeah,
should be us that has a skin
the
in the
people
game,
that are making
right?
decisions, it's not their money,
Yeah.
right? So,
I mean,
you
it
don't
truly is our money.
It is our money,
It's
but
our money.
but
Where's our,
you know, if you're a politician or if you're in an institution, I mean, I guess some do care about the money, and there's some practical stuff. But as an organization, an institution like that is inefficient. So, you know, I think there's a lot of solutions that can come from thinking differently, and part of it is the gatekeeping on the building side for the cities. The other part of it is using federal resources better. So there's all these buildings that are now empty because people are working from home in government too.
Yeah.
So why are they not converting the buildings into housing?
Oh, 'cause
Incentivizing.
it costs way too much. It's like
It doesn't. They've got,
doesn't really.
Just partner with a developer in town.
Yeah.
Create some incentives. You can still own the property or own part of the property, and guess what's going to happen over the next 20 years? That property is going to go up in value, and you've basically done it for free.
Yeah,
you know,
and you've done a good thing at the
and
same
you've done
time.
a good thing at the same time. And you've solved problems and all that kind of stuff. So some of these things, you know, obviously it's not as the actual practicality is not as simple as it sounds, but that's a good starting point, right? Where you can actually create some business, create some incentives, and there's a lot of really interesting ideas. And we're going to have Dave Thompson on, and a gentleman who runs the Homes for Living on our podcast in the next month that will talk about the housing issue in Victoria in particular, but some ideas which are very unique. And, you know, it's creating dedicated housing for people in the building sector. So it's partially subsidized, but you have to work in the sector in order to get the housing. So then you're creating housing for the people that you need to build you know what I mean?
So contractors will have a place to work while they're building other people's homes?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
To have a place to live.
Yeah,
right?
I know
Yeah.
a few contractors who now live out past Souk and come into work every day.
Exactly, which
It's-
is not
'cause
that's
that's where
not
they can
climate
afford
action.
That's not climate
No,
action.
exactly.
That's no action.
There's no action.
Yeah, it's a lot of driving is what that is. That's
So I mean, for us, and again, as we're wrapping up today's show, you know, we're trying to have guests on. So we've had some really good number of guests on in the past in the restaurant focused sector. We'll bring, you know, some municipal politicians on too, just talk about some issues around here.
I think we've got some beer conversations coming up as well.
Yeah.
If you're a beer nut, you want to
Sean
hang around.
Hoyne.
Yeah.
From Hoyne Brewery will be on, who's super interesting and, you know, built a business from his bootstraps.
A craftsman.
A craftsman.
Much like many other beer people in town. They're all
he's
really
been
great craftsmen.
like Sean's been in Victoria for a number of years, and he ran the very successful beer program at Canoe forever before he started Hoyne. And so he'll be on, I hope
Maybe next week, right?
Yeah,
We'll
I
see.
think so.
We got
and
some scheduling to do.
We got some scheduling to do. We got to do a better job of scheduling our guests.
Man, that's what a producer is for, isn't it?
I know.
Which one of us wants to be a producer? Raise your hand, quick.
Well, we probably need to.
I think combined we can produce something.
Well, I don't know how many shows we've got now, but we had like 60 or something.
Yeah, we've produced this.
Yeah,
many
we've produced
by
this
ourselves.
many.
Well, except for our super producers
Well,
over there.
super producer Vivian. Yeah, she's
there. She's doing all the hard work.
She does all the heavy lifting. We don't do much.
Good thing, because I feel weak.
I'm so weak.
Yeah, have you got a good rest of your day ahead of you?
I'm actually doing. What am I doing? Oh, it's a Czech program.
Oh,
cooking on the West Coast. Yeah.
How'd you get on?
Well, they just asked me.
Oh, okay.
So they're coming into Vic West, and so I'm gonna do that at 2:00.
I'm waiting for a Czech to do a coffee show.
Yeah, they should do a coffee show.
I know. If anyone in Czech is listening.
Yeah,
listening.
hello.
I don't know where everyone would hear that here,
we are
but
in the epicenter of the Czech studios, so
I think probably we'll have a coffee show by the end of the month.
I think it'll happen
at
pretty
this
quick.
point, yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Well, I'm off to the dentist, so
good luck with that.
I wish you good luck on your show.
Yeah, thank you.
I just had to lay back, try not to fall asleep with people poking instruments in my mouth. God, I hate that.
It reminded me, my grandmother had a saying. It was like, most, like, I mean, it's totally inappropriate. I should probably not even say it, but she always says, lay back and think of England. If you're doing something that you don't like, just lay back and think of England. I guess it was like what they used to tell women in the old days when they're just like, okay,
lay back and think of Hugh Laurie.
Yeah. Think of Hugh.
Or I don't know where that came from.
Yeah,
man, I'm watching too much House lately or something.
Yeah,
I was thinking British women. Who doesn't love Hugh Laurie? Let's get out of here, man. I'm going to say something dumb in a minute. Again.
All right, brother.
You have a great day, and be real nice, everyone.
Be real kind.
Will do.
Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-inspired catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.